Welcome, everybody, to the Nuggets of Gold podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Trey Lance's pro day, how he would kind of fit in the 49ers system if he ended up being drafted there. And then we're going to go over the offensive needs and defensive needs in the draft for the 49ers. If you're listening on YouTube, this is just going to be the Trey Lance video. So make sure to come back on Wednesday and Thursday to check out those draft needs and make sure to subscribe. So let's get into the Trey Lance pro day, though. It was yesterday. We're recording on Tuesday, kind of reacting to it. Overall, I think we expected Trey Lance to look good, which he did. I think we also expected his motion to look somewhat cleaned up. And I also think that it did in the videos at least that I saw, which weren't a ton, but finding them throughout YouTube and or Twitter. And I think a lot of that's going to go back to the fact that he trained with Jordan Palmer, and Jordan Palmer, probably the best quarterback coach in the world. So really good to have him there and kind of help him clean up his motion. That's basically what Trey Lance has been working on for the last few months. So good to see that there, but just want to get your thoughts, Aiden, on what this Trey Lance Pro Day means.
I think it was super impressive. I think more than how Lance looked is the fact that he was asked to work with John Beck in preparation, who we know has close ties to Shanahan. I know that he played for Shanahan when Shanahan was with the football team, formerly the Washington Redskins. But I thought so Beck has worked with Fields and Lance, has not worked with Mac Jones. So a lot of the speculation is that Shanahan kind of put his confidant, who's also like a quarterback coach, to kind of structure things and see things that he wants to see specifically. So that was the biggest takeaway for me. Obviously, it wasn't televised or anything like that, so we didn't get into the nitty gritty per se. But I thought Lance did what needed to do, and at this point, I would be surprised if he's not a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this morning, just because Trey Lance tried to transfer and it kind of didn't work out because of all of the COVID stuff, whatnot. No true offseason, and it ended up not working out. I'm not exactly sure why it didn't work out, but I know that his plan was to transfer from North Dakota State, and that didn't happen. And I just had a question for you. Do you think if he transferred, because this is what I think is probably the biggest issue with him, is that, okay, he has 1 year of film, he's 18 years old, he looks super raw. At times, he doesn't really look like a true quarterback, but more like an athlete at the position, which is okay. But we haven't seen him kind of, okay, here he is playing against better competition. How does he look against them? It's just a lot of question marks with him. Do you think that if he would have transferred and been able to play, let's say, I don't know where he was planning on transferring, but let's just say it was a Power 5 school. Do you think if that happens that we'd look at him as potentially the number 2 pick? Because I know that it seems pretty concrete that it's Zach Wilson. And if it's not Zach Wilson at 2, then it will be Justin Fields. But I feel like he could have made a lot of money if he would have played in Power 5 football this past season. I think that maybe a little bit of a recency bias with both Justin Fields and Zach Wilson kind of affect that. But do you think there's a chance that he could be viewed as the number 2 quarterback just like universally if he would have played this past season?
100%. I think Zach Wilson is a guy who went from late round pick to presumptive number 2 pick, and Trey Lance was on people's boards pretty high coming into last year. So if he comes in and transfers and plays super well, that's obviously the kicker. He has to play super well. But I mean, I think that's possible. I expect him to be a guy who has success in the NFL. He's a guy I've really warmed up to, given everybody saying that he loves football. He's a student of the game and really wants to be good, which I think is super duper important, especially when you have the physical tools that Trey Lance does. So I would say definitely that could have helped him. Obviously, it didn't go his way. But he's still going to be probably, I would say, the 3rd quarterback off the board, and may even end up going to a better situation. We don't really know.
3rd quarterback off the board.
Fourth. Sorry.
Okay. I was like, oh, you're sneaking it in here.
I forgot Trevor Lawrence existed, but there's a definite chance he could be the 3rd quarterback off the board. I think that's who Shanahan is kind of between, either Fields or Lance. Praying to God it is not Mac Jones, but possibly could be Mac Jones too. But I think at worst, Trey Lance is a 5th quarterback off the board. And if you end up in a place like New England over the Jets, that could end up helping you in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. And that's something I want to talk about real quick about Trey Lance. And I think if you guys have listened to my channel, I've kind of brought this up a few times. a lot of his success in the NFL, and this is my opinion, but I think a lot of his success in the NFL is going to depend on his landing spot. Probably more than any of the other quarterbacks in the class. I think that also pertains to Justin Fields a lot as well. That's why I'm really excited he ends up in San Francisco because all the tools are there. Just a couple questions to see how he can kind of change systems from that Ryan Day system at Ohio State and how he can adjust. That's like the big questions with Fields, but with Lance, it's about developing as a quarterback and becoming a quarterback. And it's going to be tough to do, but if he ends up in the right spot, and that's why I loved Carolina for him before. I think it could go a long way for him. Of course, if he ends up in Kyle's system, that might be the best system, most quarterback-friendly system in the NFL. But there's a few spots I really like from. I like Washington. I like New England, of course. Definitely could see, maybe if let's say the Saints traded up, some crazy thing like that where you see some team that's a good team that needs a quarterback trade up. But I think he is definitely the guy that if he ends up being the fifth quarterback off the board, teams that picked other guys before him might look really bad down the road just because if he goes to that successful franchise. Also, looking back on when quarterbacks have got picked recently, the guys that end up with the better organizations tend to do a lot better. And like if you just look back, oh, well, really, this guy went to the Browns. Oh, look, the Browns quarterback sucked for like 30 years. Like there's so many examples of this where we just see, okay, going to a good spot means so much, but I got to ask you, what's your percentage chance, if you had to put a percentage on it, that Trey Lance is selected by the 49ers at 3?
30%. I would say 60% Fields, 30% Lance, 10% Mac Jones.
Okay, you're super close to me. I'm 65% Fields, 35% Lance. And I'm not even going to mention Mac Jones.
You're not even going to throw him on there?
No, and that might be bad for me, but I really do not think that's the move. And I've said that, like, I get that there's people that believe it, and there's a lot of rumors to it. I just don't. I would be absolutely shocked if that was the pick. And a lot of people that listen to have been like, dude, I think there's a larger chance of them taking Jones than you think. Totally understand that, but I would be completely shocked. But kind of talking about Trey Lance real quick. If they were to take them, which I think he is the second option for them right now, and I'll say this, I think he's the second option over Zach Wilson if that happens, which I don't know how many people agree with that. I think a lot of people are really, really high on Wilson. I get it. Like he looks, I mean, we saw him recently too, and like we've seen him play against a little bit better competition, not a ton, but I think that for what Kyle wants to do, it makes more sense to take Lance. He definitely has the higher upside than Wilson long term. But if they were to take him, I think it's very clear that Jimmy Garoppolo would be the starting quarterback for all of the 2021 season. Do you agree with me on that?
Assuming he doesn't get hurt, yes.
Yeah, that's the big kicker.
the big kicker there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk about the pro day. Think about what are the odds that he goes there. And I think 30 to 35% seems pretty reasonable, I think. I'm surprised. I kind of thought Grant Cohn was talking about like, oh, we're going to get the 49ers are all in on Lance. I've seen a little bit of it, but I didn't see the Mac Jones level to it. Now, I have started to see this. I don't know if you've noticed this. Instead of the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones, I've seen the 49ers are going to take Mac Jones or Trey Lance over Justin Fields.
I have seen some of that.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to how this plays out, but just wanted to get something quick out there about Trey Lance because super fun player. He's one of my favorite. He's probably my favorite guy in the class. I just really like him.
You've
really
been on the hype train for a long time.
He has been my quarterback too since the summer.
I love it.
And it's hard to like, for me, it's hard to like reevaluate him and be like, oh, these guys have played well because I haven't seen him play in so long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had that one game. I really don't count that game that much because a lot of his game and like you could see it when he's playing too, like he calls everything. A lot of it is preparation beforehand. It's really tough if you don't have a real off season and they played one single game. So like how much of that can you really like look at and evaluate? And also the thing with him too is it's tough to evaluate him against the FCS competition. But I don't know. He's definitely been one of my favorite guys. I mean, I've said from the first day, like, or not maybe from the first day, but I've definitely come along to Justin Fields being a guy. Justin Fields, Trey Lance. I mean, I love either of these guys. So interesting to see if he ends up a 49er, but super fun either way. But I think that'll probably do it for the Trey Lance segment here. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure to come back tomorrow and the next day to talk about the draft needs. But if you're listening on podcast, we'll get into those right now.